There's a new podcast out there. I get emails all the time. Jesse, what podcast you listen to? What podcast you listen to? Mike Slater has one. Little historical, biblical perspective on things. Mike, first of all, what's the name of this new podcast of yours?
Man, I'm grateful for you, Jesse. Politics by Faith with Mike Slater. It's a play on Hebrews 11 and 12. So Politics by Faith just came out yesterday.
Okay. Politics and faith. I thought faithful people weren't supposed to get involved in that icky politics. Isn't that how it's supposed to be?
Yeah, no, here's the whole genesis of this. There's way too much anxiety in our culture. I have it, my wife feels it, everyone I know, it's just like, we're just like wound up too tight, way too much anxiety. People are having trouble sleeping at night. 50% of Americans doom scroll at night in bed. Just sitting here in bed, just scrolling through everything, seeing how life is miserable and full of despair and things are terrible and the economy's awful. Like, this is no way to go through life. No people have ever been bombarded with as much news as we are right now. It's constant. So I wanted to address that anxiety. So that's what this podcast is. So here's how it works, Jesse. First, we come out with the story of the day, right? And we explain it clearly and all the rest. We lament it because most of this stuff doesn't need to be this way. These are mostly failures from our government. So we lament that. But then we take a turn. And this is where we bring the historical and biblical perspective. Because I believe, as Solomon said in Ecclesiastes 1:9, there's nothing new under the sun. And the point of this perspective is to give you peace so that you can sleep at night and wake up ready to fight on. So I mentioned Hebrews 11 and 12. So it says, by faith, Enoch, by faith, Abraham, by faith, Sarah, by faith, Jacob, by faith, all these Old Testament saints, and then the wonderful things they did. But then it ends with the men and women of God were made strong out of weakness. And that's what we can do. We can either let our days make us weak and miserable and pathetic, or we can be made stronger out of these difficult days. And that's what I know you and I want to do. And just one last thing, there's one other great line in Hebrews. It says, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. And anxiety and worry, especially if that consumes you and if that keeps you up at night, that will hinder you and that will entangle you. And Hebrews says, so do not grow weary or lose heart. And that's the point of this. A little perspective can bring us peace, make us stronger, not grow weary, not lose heart, fight on to live another day.
Yeah, there's a ton of anxiety out there. People in my family that struggle with it. I probably would, except I'm a sociopath. All right, Mike, give us some perspective on interest rates and the Fed, and because there is real people are obviously hurting out there. They know it when they go buy groceries. They know it if their small business needs a loan. Give us some perspective.
Yeah, man. So this is the one that gets me the most. This is the most personal for me. So I got two stories to share. First, in ancient Greece and in the Bible, there's two words for the word time. You have chronos, time. This is where we get the word chronological. And this is like seconds, minutes, hours, days, right? How you measure time. But then there's also this word kairos, K-A-I-R-O-S. And it's a broader, more like a season of time or the opportune time or the right time. And that word's used 86 times in the Bible. Again, Solomon, Ecclesiastes, there's a time to mourn and a time to laugh, right? So it's this bigger concept of time. And I noticed that when I think about the economy and I get anxious, I'm living in a chronos mindset. I'm checking the stock market and checking Bitcoin and looking at my portfolio. I'm living by the second, and it just riddles me with anxiety. So I need to broaden out and have a kairos mindset and recognize that this is a season of life, and it's going to be a difficult season in a lot of ways for a lot of people, but people have been through worse, and we can get through it too. And that just takes such an edge off, and then I can think more clearly. I also think of difficult times in the Bible that people have been through. And my goodness, there's plenty of these. But I'm reminded of the story of Samaria. So Samaria was besieged by the enemy. And there's tons of relevancy to what's going on today with Samaria that it's in the podcast. But things were so expensive in Samaria. The Bible specifically says, this is in 2 Kings, that a donkey head cost 80 pieces of silver, and a cup of dove's dung went for 5 pieces of silver, right? So things were so expensive that an unclean animal's head cost more than anyone could afford. It's like a year's salary. And even a cup of bird dung for fuel cost 5 pieces of silver. Things were really, really bad. And they made it through. And I'll give you this one, because this is how bad things were. There's a great scene where the king of Samaria is walking down the street, and a woman comes up to him and says, "King, king, you're not going to believe it. I need your help. A woman and I came up with a plan to kill our children, and we're going to kill my son first and eat him, and then we were going to kill her son and eat him. But all we did was kill my son, and then she left with her son, and that's unfair and that's unjust, and we need to go find her so we can kill her son and eat her son." That's how bad things were in Samaria. They were eating their own children. So we're not there yet, and recognizing that makes me feel a little bit better.
Well, I guess that does put burger prices in perspective.
Don't miss Jesse Kelly Breaks History, Che Guevara, the latest episode of a new series available now exclusively for First TV supporters. Visit the First TV app or thefirsttv.com to subscribe and start watching today.